The first light of July 5, 2025, crept hesitantly into our master bedroom, brushing the walls with pale gold. I lay still under the cool white sheets, savoring the silence, a rare commodity these days as wedding preparations consumed every corner of the house. My son's wedding. The culmination of years spent guiding him, correcting him, loving him through scraped knees, first heartbreaks, and teenage rebellions. Today, he would stand at the altar, ready to promise his life to the woman who had captured our family's hearts. I closed my eyes, inhaling the soft scent of lavender from my pillow. A gentle breeze stirred the curtains, carrying up from downstairs the muffled clatter of fine china and the hum of my wife's voice. She was in the kitchen, overseeing the caterer's final run-through. My daughter-in-law-to-be, Amelia, flitted between rooms, her laughter bright enough to make the dusty corners of our old house sparkle. I imagined her, hair pinned in a cascade of curls, adjusting lace on her mother's gown, offering motherly advice to the nervous flower girls. In less than 5 hours, she would walk toward my son, who waited with a trembling smile that would steady at the sight of her. I reached up to smooth back the tuft of hair I'd styled only the night before, an elegant sweep of salt and pepper glory that framed my face and gave me an air of distinguished calm. My hand met nothing. Panic jolted through me, and I bolted upright. The blankets pulled around my waist, the morning chill creeping along my bare legs as I scrambled for the bedside lamp. One flick, and a white glare filled the room. I scrambled to the full-length mirror, heart hammering. Where once lay a mane of hair, there was only smooth, gleaming skin. My scalp caught the light and almost laughed, a cruel, mocking gleam. I raised my trembling hand to press against the top of my head. Fingers slid across warmth and firmness, but not a single strand of hair remained. My pulse felt loud in my ears. Breathe, I told myself. It's a prank. Just a prank. Yet as the room spun, I realized there was no evidence of a joke, no clumps of hair on the pillow, no rogue scissors on the nightstand. The sheets were pristine, the mattress unmarked. I glanced at the clock, 5:47 a.m. Plenty of time before the bridal party's hair and makeup began, but none to spare if I wanted to salvage my dignity. Adrenaline carried me to the bathroom. I flicked on the light over the sink and examined my scalp from every angle. Not even the faintest shadow of sideburns remained. The reflection stared back at me, gray eyes widened, disbelief etched in every line of my forehead. I splashed cold water on my face, hoping to wake myself from this nightmare, but when I returned to the mirror, baldness was stubbornly permanent. My mind raced. Who would do this? My wife? No. She had too much on her plate. My son? Unthinkable. My daughter-in-law-to-be, Amelia? Had she truly? No. That would be absurd. Yet the thought lodged itself in my chest, squeezing so tight I could barely draw a breath. She had teased the night before at dinner, "Dad, let me give you a little trim, just to make you feel young again." I laughed and brushed it off, imagining nothing more than a playful snip at the ends. But that jest, innocent as it seemed, suddenly felt malignant. I reached for the silk scarf on the chair by the dresser, wrapping it loosely around my head. The soft fabric slipped over my ears, tying snugly at the nape of my neck. It would have to do, for now. I crept out of the bedroom, careful not to wake my wife, already dressed in a powder blue dress, her hair pinned high. She was at the top of the stairs, glancing at her watch and chatting with the florist via video call. "Coffee, darling," she offered without looking up. I sank into the nearest chair, hands clasped tightly in my lap. "Yes, please." My voice cracked. She slid a cup across the table, the scent of dark roast mingling with the aroma of gardenias from the entryway bouquet. Her eyes flicked to my scarf. "You're not wearing your usual grooming," I forced a smile as I raised the cup. "Just trying something different," I mumbled, and took a sip so that she wouldn't press further. The warmth of the coffee settled in my chest, but the unease settled deeper. Downstairs, the laughter grew louder. My son's best man joked about last-minute jitters. Through the open French doors, I could see Amelia's mother fussing with a string of pearls around her daughter's throat. The scene should have filled me with warmth, but all I felt was a knot twisting inside me. Rising, I set down the cup with deliberate calm. I needed a plan. 4 hours until the ceremony. Enough time to confront whoever was responsible, or to disappear and somehow reclaim a shred of dignity. I considered barbering services at the local salon, but the house telephone rang, my son's voice, tight with excitement and nerves. Dad, are you on your way? The limo's waiting. I swore under my breath. Yes, son. Leaving now. I hung up and paused, heart aching. Today was meant to be about celebration, not this betrayal. I straightened, scarf in place, shoulders back, and told myself I would see this through. Not for me, but for him. My son needed his father walking beside him, unwavering in support. I opened the door to the hall. Light spilled in from the front windows, illuminating the polished wood floors and the floral arrangements that seemed to murmur promises of a perfect day. I inhaled, steeled myself, and stepped forward. Bald, yes, but unbroken. And in a few hours, amid vows and families uniting, I would remember that love, after all, had a way of healing even the deepest cuts. I paced the landing outside the bridal suite, my scarf knotted too tightly around my head as though it could hold all my worries at bay. Below me, laughter and music drifted upward, a cheerful counterpoint to the storm roiling in my chest. Through the half-open door, I could see Amelia's bridesmaids smoothing the train of her gown, their whispered compliments punctuated by light giggles. She sat at the vanity, brushing a single curl free of its pearl clip, humming softly to herself. My heart pounded so loud I half expected her to hear it. This was supposed to be a morning of unity and joy, yet everywhere I turned I saw reminders of my violation. My son, eagerly awaiting me downstairs, my wife, bustling with last-minute details, even the pale pink rose petals scattered along the hall seemed to mock me. You have no control. I swallowed, angled my head, and knocked lightly. She looked up, startled. For a moment, her eyes darted to the scarf, then she offered a warm smile. Papa, is everything all right? May I come in? I forced calm into my voice. She patted an empty stool beside her. I sat, careful not to touch her gown. The vanity mirror multiplied our reflections, and I was struck by how small and fragile she seemed, so unlike the scheming prankster I'd briefly imagined. I need to ask you something, I said, and closed my eyes for a heartbeat. When I opened them, I met her gaze directly. Last night, did you do something to my hair? Her cheeks flushed pink. She set the brush on the countertop, fingers lingering on its handle as though afraid to let go. I realized then how much she must have wrestled with this confession, how torn between her impulsive gesture and the knowledge that it had hurt me. I did, she admitted, voice low. I'm so sorry, Dad. I thought it would be funny, like the joke at dinner. I never imagined I'd take so much. She tucked a loose curl behind her ear, tears forming in her lashes. I bought clippers this morning. I wanted to surprise you. To show I was brave enough to face the family in any way, even with a shaved head. I wanted you all to know I'm committed, that I'll do anything for this family. Her words tumbled out in a breathless rush, and for the first time I saw the sincerity behind her reckless act. I thought of how she had challenged my son's timid nature, coaxed him out of his shell, and how she had welcomed me, clumsy senior citizen that I was, into her world of modern art galleries, salsa classes, and midnight picnics. She wasn't some prankster. She was a vibrant woman whose love for my family overflowed in the most unexpected ways. I understand why you did it, I said quietly, reaching for her hand. My fingertips brushed her wrist and I marveled at how cool her skin felt compared to the heat of my scalp. But Amelia, I felt violated. I woke up and didn't recognize myself. My voice caught, and I squeezed her hand gently. I needed to know it wasn't malicious. She nodded, silent tears glimmering. I was selfish. I thought the shock would bring us closer. Instead, I hurt you. I'm sorry. I studied her face, those earnest eyes, the flush of regret, and felt the sharp knot in my chest begin to loosen. Let's agree on something, I said, voice firm but kind. We move forward from this, but you promise me no more surprises, at least not of the hair variety. She managed a watery laugh, a deal. She leaned forward and hugged me, careful not to smudge her mascara. The scent of her floral perfume mingled with the faint tang of hairspray. I breathed it in, steadying myself. Just one thing, I added, pulling back to look her in the eyes. Before the vows, know that I stand beside you. Bald or not, I will walk you down this aisle, as a father, not as a victim of a late-night barber. She smiled, radiant and relieved. I rose and patted her shoulder. Now, let's get you to the chapel. She stood, smoothing the lace of her dress, and slipped an arm through mine as though she'd been doing it her whole life. Outside the suite, the grand hall teemed with activity. The caterers set long oak tables with linen runners strewn with wildflowers. The string quartet tuned beneath the archway. Cousins and aunts hovered, adjusting vests and fiddling with family heirlooms. My son emerged from the groomsmen's quarters in a charcoal suit that fit him like a second skin, handsome, confident, oblivious to the scandal that had brewed in our home just hours before. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Dad. You look different. I grinned, lifting the scarf ever so slightly. Just trying a new style. He laughed and clapped me on the shoulder, then turned to Amelia, whose cheeks mirrored his joy. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the missing hair, not the pranks, not the anxiety that had drenched my morning in cold sweat. As the organist struck the opening chords, I felt something shift inside me. The awkwardness of the morning dissolved into something warmer, a recognition that families, like hairstyles, change and adapt. Sometimes they grow unruly, sometimes they're snipped away in shocking bites, but at the end of the day, what remains is the bond beneath. Scalp or no scalp, mine was stronger than ever. And as I stepped onto the sunlit aisle, arm in arm with my daughter-in-law-to-be, I realized that this strange, painful prank had become the catalyst for a deeper, richer connection, one that would sustain us long after the echoes of "I do" had faded. The air in the bridal suite felt impossibly still, as though time itself had paused to watch what would unfold. Sunlight filtered through the lace drapes, casting delicate patterns across Amelia's white gown and the polished oak floorboards. Her reflection, poised, radiant, almost ethereal, stared back at me from the mirror, and for a moment I hesitated at the threshold. My heart pounded so fiercely I worried she might hear it. This was the moment of truth. I would either fracture the fragile peace we just re-established or forge a deeper understanding between us. I cleared my throat. Amelia, I began, my voice hushed. She turned, those deep brown eyes widening as she saw the resolve in mine. I crossed the room, each step measured, each breath a struggle. At her side, her maid of honor placed a reassuring hand on her arm, but said nothing. In that pregnant silence, I sensed the weight of every hopeful wish that had been pinned on this day. I want you to know, I said, tilting my head so that the edges of my scarf caught the morning light, that this wedding is not about appearances. It's about promises. My words wavered only briefly before I found my strength. When you cut my hair last night, you hollowed out more than my follicles. You hollowed out my certainty that I could count on the people I love most to respect me, even in jest. I paused, studying her face. A single tear slipped free, tracing a path through her carefully applied makeup. She swallowed, her chin trembling. I know, she whispered. I was wrong. I thought I was proving something, showing I'm fearless, that I'd do anything for this family. But I see now it was selfish, and I'm sorry. Truly. Her hand sought mine. I felt the delicate press of her warm skin against my cool palm, and the tremor in her fingers betrayed her fear that I would reject her. You are fearless, I countered softly, but fearlessness isn't measured by how little hair you have. It's measured by how fully you love, and that, Amelia, you do in abundance. I let my words settle between us. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so it was no more than a thread of sound. Promise me, from this moment on, we deal with surprises the hard way, by talking. No more midnight haircuts, no more stunts that steal away my trust. She closed her eyes, relief flooding her expression. I promise, she said, and it felt to me like she was sealing our pact with something far more binding than a casual vow. I straightened, reaching out to smooth a stray curl from her temple, an unspoken forgiveness in that simple gesture. Then let's finish getting you ready. Your groom is waiting. I offered her my arm. She took it, and together we stepped out of the suite into the corridor that led to the chapel outside. The corridor was a blur of pastel bridesmaid dresses, polished leather shoes, and the flutter of lace. The laughter and chatter that had once felt oppressive now sounded like a celebration of resilience. As we walked, I felt the scarf loosen imperceptibly around my head, not because I'd untied it, but because my heart felt lighter, the knot of hurt now unbound. We paused at the top of the chapel steps. Through the open doors, I could see my son standing at the altar, his posture straight, his chest rising and falling in deliberate calm. His eyes roved the entrance, searching for his bride and his father. When they found us, he seemed to gather himself, a smile spreading across his face, uncertain at first, then confident. Relief washed over me. He had no idea of our impromptu reconciliation, and I intended to keep it that way. Today would be his day of joy, unmarred by our private drama. Amelia smoothed her gown, and I offered a small nod. Shall we? I asked. And she lifted her bouquet of pale pink roses. In that moment, I saw her not as the woman who had wielded clippers like a weapon, but as the daughter I never had, resilient, earnest, and beautifully brave. I would walk her down this aisle, bald head and all, proud to be the man who would stand beside her as she joined our family. As we descended the steps, the organist struck the first solemn notes of the processional. The chamber doors framed us like a living painting, bride in white, father in a dark suit, both stepping forward together into the sunlight. Gasps and whispered exclamations rose from the pews, punctuated by the soft patter of handkerchiefs dabbed at eyes. Halfway down the aisle, Amelia hesitated. She glanced at me, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. I squeezed her arm gently. You've got this, I murmured. She exhaled, squared her shoulders, and resumed her graceful progress toward the man who waited for her. When our eyes met at the altar, hers on mine on my son, I felt a profound gratitude. The morning's turmoil had been intense, but it had refined us, distilled our connections to what truly mattered. In that instant, I understood that families are not bound by perfect moments, but by the imperfect ones we survive together. And as the organs swelled and Amelia placed her bouquet down to take my son's outstretched hand, I knew this chapter of our story would be remembered not for the missing hair, but for the love that refused to be cut away. The afternoon sun cast molten patterns through the stained glass windows as we processed back down the aisle, bride and groom hand in hand, parents trailing behind like proud sentinels. Each step was buoyed by applause and blessings, petals strewn before us like soft promises. I felt the warmth of the scarf at my nape, but more so the warmth in my chest, a swelling pride that eclipsed any lingering embarrassment. Today had proven that love, once tested by razor's edge, could emerge even stronger. The reception, under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights and papery lanterns, our families mingled in a joyous embrace. The long banquet tables groaned under platters of roast lamb, bowls of heirloom tomato salad, and fragrant loaves of rosemary focaccia. Glasses clinked in toasts, laughter ricocheted off ancient stone walls, and somewhere in the distance, a saxophone's sultry notes beckoned dancers to the floor. I sat beside Amelia's mother, Diana, and found myself sharing stories of my own wedding day, of nervous first steps, of a veil that slipped over my eyes, of an uncle who accidentally toasted the bridesmaid instead of the bride. Diana's eyes glistened with tears of laughter, and I realized how seamlessly Amelia had woven our two families into one tapestry. Each anecdote drew us closer, stitch by stitch. Between courses, my son pulled me aside. He had the same bright eyes I remembered from his childhood, now tempered by the quiet confidence of a man who had found his partner. He clasped my hand, strong, sure, and said, "Dad, today was perfect. Thank you for everything." I squeezed back, my heart full. "Only the best for you both," I replied, voice thick. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the music slowed and couples drifted to the dance floor. Amelia hesitated, searching my face. I rose, offered my hand, and led her to the center of the lawn. She wore her smile like a crown, and I felt privileged to be by her side. The band played a soft waltz, and we moved together, step by step, letting the rhythm guide us. I felt her hand tremble lightly in mine, a residual echo of the mornings. Fear, and I whispered, "You did wonderfully today." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I couldn't have done it without you," she murmured. As the final notes faded, the guests erupted into cheers. My wife joined us, wrapping an arm around both our shoulders, and my son slid in beside his bride. We formed a circle, for hearts bound by blood, love, and now an unforgettable story. The moment felt suspended in time, a jewel set against the velvet night. Later still, long after the last slice of cake had vanished and only the glow of embers remained in the fire pit, I found myself back in our suite. My scarf lay on the vanity like a soft confession. I ran my fingers over it, remembering every surge of anxiety and every wave of forgiveness that had carried me through the day. I looked into the mirror, bald, yes, but radiant with contentment. My scalp no longer felt like a testament to betrayal, but a reminder of reconciliation. Amelia slipped in behind me, her hand gentle on my shoulder. "May I?" she asked softly. I nodded. She reached out and untied the scarf, letting it fall to the floor. Then, with a delicate touch that spoke of respect and affection, she laid her hand across my head. "Thank you," she said, voice hushed, "for trusting me again." I closed my eyes, leaning into her warmth. "No more surprises," I teased lightly, and she laughed, a clear, joyous sound that banished the last shadows of the morning's turmoil. That night, as I sank into the cool sheets, still bald, still amazed, I thought of how life often cuts away what we think we need to challenge us, only to reveal what truly matters. My hair would grow back in time, but the bond one shared with my daughter-in-law was already rooted deep, stronger than any locks could ever make it. In its place, something richer had taken hold, an unwavering trust, a bittersweet memory of vulnerability overcome, and a story we would recount at family gatherings for generations to come. And so, beneath the silver glow of the moon and the soft chorus of summer cicadas, I drifted into sleep, content in the certainty that love, even when shorn to its barest form, remained the fiercest and most beautiful thing we possess.